talk a lot about enjoying the path to financial independence, but I would be lying if I said I also didn't want to get there faster. And I'm guessing you feel the same way. Because all else equal, why would you choose 25 years to reach FI when there's a path that gets you there in 20 or 15 or even 10? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. Today's guest, Chris Luger from Heavy Metal Money Podcast, reached financial independence in about 10 years. And he's going to be sharing some tips on how you can do that too. But what's interesting about Chris is that he didn't start with an advantage. Actually, early on, his wife handled most of the family finances. But after they divorced, he had to learn personal finance from scratch. And that's really where his FI journey began. So in this conversation, Chris and I will break down tactical moves that will shave years off your FI timeline while still balancing sustainability, enjoyment, and risk. Let's get into it. For most people, how realistic is a 10-year path to financial independence? Like, do you think most people can actually do this?
I think a lot of people can. I think even if you're at like a median income, somewhere in the US today, median income is about 80 grand a year, right? So I think with a median income, absolutely, I think you could get there in 10 years. If you have some of those like entry-level jobs and you're making 50, it may be a little more challenging, but I think it could still be doable. It's just a matter of how much you're willing to kind of, I don't want to say give up. Everything has a trade-off, right? So you might have to, sacrifice in some areas where you are building or looking at your future life, your future self later on. So I think a lot of people can. I wouldn't say most people, but I think a lot of people absolutely can.
I'm going to push back and say probably most people that are listening to this podcast definitely can. Like,
That's
come
fair.
on.
That's fair. Yes.
The mass majority of people probably don't have the education and knowledge to really get on a super sprint to financial independence in 10 years. But the people that are listening to Personal Finance Podcast, come on, man. We're ready. We're primed. We're going to get this done in 10 years, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. So I think if you're listening and you're like, okay, I think the first thing you need is you need that why behind, and it can't just be because, I think the idea of being retired early sounds awesome, but it gets a lot deeper. Like you need to have some sort of why, right? And whether that's spending time with your kids, spending time traveling, spending time focusing on things, maybe it's a different type of career where you may not get paid as much, or whatever your why is, that's definitely something that one of the first things that you really got to look at, like internally to yourself. And then you're ready to, let's get busy. Let's turn up the gas and make things happen. So
yeah. What was your why whenever you got started on this journey?
Great question. So I think very early on, I was 2015, 2016. My kids were younger and I had just gone through divorce. I was basically learning how to budget. And then that's when I discovered that there are people that are super intentional with their finances. And my why really was, I'm a single dad. I want to spend time with my kids. I want to really be the best dad that I could be. But it changes. It absolutely changes. My kids now are adults. But that was really the beginning of my journey, was I wanted to spend more time with my kids. And now that I have adult kids, the why does change. And now I still want to spend time with my kids, but it's a little different. I'm gonna take them on some vacations. I'm definitely one where those people listening may know the book Die with Zero. Mm-hmm. So I want to build those memory dividends with my kids for sure.
That makes sense. And you said you got divorced and you started learning this whole budgeting thing. I've heard you talk about that moment a little bit, and it sounded like you didn't know really anything that was going on when it comes to finances. Not because you were unintelligent, but the fact that you just kind of turned a blind eye and you let your wife handle most of the bills and the budgeting. I think you even mentioned like, I don't know how much I pay for Dish. And then you like opened up, once you became single, you kind of opened that up and figured all that stuff out. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in fairness, I purposely did not want to know how much money we didn't have or how much money we were spending on groceries or Dish Network and in fairness, my wife at the time, like, that's what she went to school for. She was good at it, right? We kind of had this yin and yang. I did certain things in the relationship. She did the other stuff, right? For example, I remember that there was a time when, at the time, it was the titanium MacBook had come out. I'm trying to think of what year that was. I don't remember. But anyway, I remember, it was the fastest frickin' laptop on the planet at the time. And I think it was like $3,200 or something. But I remember I really had to make a case, right? I had to go to my wife, explain why I needed this laptop, and how much it was going to cost, and basically get permission to buy this laptop, right? That was one of the examples of, I didn't really pay attention. I went to work, the money was automatically deposited, and the wife kind of paid the bills, balanced the checkbook, made sure that made sure things got paid for sure.
Which almost makes your 10-year journey even more incredible. Like, I felt like it would have taken me at least a year, 2 years, 3 years to start figuring out budgeting and automating bills and some of the basic terminology. Like, I just assumed knowing you
totally.
and doing it in 10 years, like you were coming from a financial planning background, or you managed the family finances. So incredible though, that you're like, you know what, now I got to do this on my own. You started learning and then you kind of dove head first into it.
I remember, like, I didn't have logins to any of the accounts. I had to get logins or create logins. I had to, and obviously we were a couple that all of our finances were joint at the time, right? So right away, I opened up a brand new account, brand new credit card, and then some of the utilities and some of the services we had. I remember I had to create logins or log in for the first time. It was kind of scary, right? I had to see how much we had in there. I had to find out how much. That's one of the things where I discovered, oh my gosh, we're paying, I think it was like $160 or something a month on Dish Network for channels I never watched, right? That was just one example. I mean, there was everything from insurances to our homeowners insurance and auto owners insurance, like things that were never really reviewed, or let's go ahead and find out, like, let's compare policies. What kind of coverages are we getting? I mean, believe it or not, I found out that my homeowner's insurance, like, I had overpaid in like the 10 years that we lived there. I had overpaid like $10,000.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I just happened to, again, I really got into it, and I started asking my neighbors, like, hey, who do you have for homeowners insurance? What are your what are your premiums? What's your deductible? Like, I started asking all these questions. Then I would go back to my insurance agent, and we were going back and forth. This was the same insurance guy I had since I was 17 years old. Proof that they're not looking out for your best interest. In the end, I found out that, I mean, the premiums I were paying were practically double than what some of the other policies out there were. And so that was just one of the things that I learned, right? And so as I started learning, and it all started with really Googling, like, what is the best budget, how to budget, and that's where really the foundational piece of this was Dave Ramsey. That was the first person that always shows up. I started binging, right? Just binging his podcast. And then I got Total Money Makeover and read that.
I don't know if you know it off the top of your head. If not, maybe just give me a ballpark number. Sure. What your net worth was whenever you started this journey in 2015, 2016, and then where your net worth is today, if you're comfortable sharing with that, or at least when you reached financial independence.
I think, again, my record keeping was not very good back then, but I had some 401k money that I was contributing to a target date fund. I had no idea what it was, what the funds were. Like, I had no idea. I knew it was something that I had to do, and I was contributing up to the match. So that's the only, I guess, smart thing that I did. But doing so, my net worth when this all started was probably $200,000.
Okay.
Right? I had some equity in the house and then a little bit of 401k money. So going through divorce, part of the divorce decree is I kept the house, but the house at the time had $268,000 of mortgage on it. She got about $100,000 of my retirement. So she got one of my old 401k's account that had about $100,000 in it. So after all that was settled, my net worth was about $200,000.
Wow. And then you grew to today. What, is that 5, 10x?
Today, if you look at, so net worth is about, if you add all my real estate and my portfolio, I'm at about 3.2.
That is crazy, man.
Yeah.
So you're like 15x where you started and 10 years ago. So I'm guessing, I don't know what your FIRE number was or what your FIRE number is. When did you cross that? Was it within the 10-year period?
Yeah, it was basically about 2-3 years ago, like right up before I turned 50. Because the entire time, like, I really didn't focus on, so many people in this community focus on a FIRE number. Yeah. I didn't. I early on just was looking at the age. I'm like, okay, first I was like, 55 is the year. Like, I want to be done at 55. That seemed reasonable. It wasn't too aggressive. It's like many people retire at 55. It's fine, you know. But then as I got closer, I realized that, you know, the numbers made sense where, oh, maybe it could be 53, maybe 52. And then finally, I remember when I was like 48, I was like, man, could I retire at 50? I don't know. And that's where I started having deep conversations with people in the community, like, you know, at Camp Fi and Economy. And I'm talking with, you know, some pillars in the personal finance community. People know Mark Troutman and Kevin Sebesta and Joel Sulci-High, and just there's so many people, just great people, Doc G, and so many others. I don't want to like, I don't want to leave out just, I mean, there's so many people in the community.
Yeah.
I mean, I would go to Camp Fi and talk to dozens of people and hearing their stories and seeing what's possible. And I remember one of the quotes that just stuck with me for so long. It was talking with Diana Merriam of the Economy Conference. We were at Camp Fi, and we were sitting on the sofa, and I'm like, I just don't know what I should do, if I should leave work, what I should do. And we kind of shared numbers a little bit at the time. And she told me, well, I think you've earned the opportunity to take a risk and leave work. And because there's so many things I wanted to do in life, right? That kind of stuck with me, and that led me to be able to leave work at age 50.
Super cool, man.
So I know that I just went off on a major rant. But
I love major rants, dude. I love them. I love them. Let's get into the tactical. I'm kind of interested to hear some of the major moves that you felt like you made that actually shaved off significant time. Like there are small things I'm sure along the way that you optimized, but can you name one or two like the big things, like the things right away that jump out to you that even if you hadn't calculated it, you know you took a year, 2 years, 3 years off your FI timeline?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was truly understanding where my money was going. And I think, you know, when you ask a lot of people, and many times people will say, oh, I don't really spend that much money. I don't know where it's going, because you're not tracking it. You're not really there's so much impulse and mindless spending. And at the time I was working downtown Minneapolis, we as a team, or me and some coworkers, whatever, we'd walk the Skyway and go to lunch like every day. Right. And so for me, it was truly tracking my spending. And I'm telling you, I started with a notebook and a pencil, writing shit down, because I didn't know what tools were out there. And in all honesty, I'm one of the few, like, I don't want to call myself a FI person, but I'm one of the FI people that I'm not really into spreadsheets, man. Like I get it, but I'm just, I think they intimidated me because I was kind of new to it. Right. Man, once I started tracking where my money was going on the bills, like Dish Network or whatever, insurances, but also like eating out so many times.
You've referenced this in so many podcast episodes. Like, I'm so curious to learn how much you ate out. Like,
oh my gosh, I saved $500 to $700 a month.
Whoa.
Because it was lunch every day. It was dinner coming home, especially like it's twofold, right? If it was a week, so my kids were with me, it was week on, week off. If I didn't have the kids with me, I'd work later or whatever, you know, and then you're coming home and you're tired and you're like, oh, well, I'll just stop and get a pizza on the way home or whatever. Then on the flip side, the weeks I had my kids, it was like I'd be coming home and I would talk to my kids and it's like, you know, oh, I'll stop and pick up Wendy's on the way home. Like, you know, it was a habit. It was a ritual. It was easy. It saved time. I didn't have to make the decision of like what to make or prepare. Yeah. Because by the end of the day, you're like decision fatigue. I just made 1,000 decisions at work. I don't want to figure out what to make for dinner. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that added up a lot. So imagine, again, you have $500 to $700 a month that now you could invest. That was a big one. So there's a lot of other things that I started tracking. And I stopped buying just the stuff that I didn't, you know, the impulse stuff. Like I would buy, you know, I'm a huge music guy, and I'd buy concert shirts, and I'd buy, you know, just memorabilia. I don't buy as many CDs now, but I do for bands that I really do. Like I'm a huge fan. I would buy that rare import CD. Did I need to spend $70 on it? Probably not. It's, you know what? I still have them and they're still shrink wrapped over in my case. Why did I get that? But it's true.
Yes.
Right? So tracking where the money goes was huge for me. And I think most people, that is the first thing that you will see how much money you have left over if you stop the stuff that really doesn't bring value to your life. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. That's such an easy cut. And I'm guessing the person listening to this right now is probably tracking. I just feel like it's such a tenet and practice of financial independence. But if not, I think it's worth doing even for a short period of time. Maybe you're someone that does get a little fatigued with tracking. I think this community might tar and feather you for not being a spreadsheet guy, but hey, we embrace you,
Absolutely.
Chris. We embrace you. There's tech out there too that's great for it. Even tracking for a month to see what's coming in and out and catching some of those things like, whoa, like my insurance, I didn't realize it was that much. Is that what it normally, like, is that how much I should be paying for?
Right.
And then taking the step to go out there and proactively get some additional quotes and figure out if you're in market. Because even if you changed your, homeowners from 2,000 to 1,200 and you save $800 a year, you're not losing any joy. I promise you, I've talked to so many people. Tell me your favorite expense, and no one has told me homeowners insurance. So I am guessing saving homeowners
Yeah.
insurance and having the same coverage is not going to do anything to your enjoyment level, but it's got to give you $800 back to start investing, and money's got to start showing up. Like, I love this eating out example too, because on one hand, there's like the other side of the story that people are like, oh, don't give up the small things, the small joys in life and whatnot. And I do agree with that to some extent. But $500 to $700 that you could save every single month by not eating out, even just not eating out as frequently, is huge. Like, if you put even $500, a monthly investment of $500 over a 10-year period, like, you're going to become a millionaire. Like, that's
Yeah,
that's
it's
a
huge.
lot of money
Yeah.
that you can save. And once again, if it's not bringing you joy and it was only the default option because of convenience for you, like, it takes a little bit of reprogramming, but probably something that didn't drastically change your life or drag you through the mud in terms of this journey.
A part of it for me too, like for instance, when I was working in the office downtown, it was that camaraderie,
Sure.
the feeling of connectedness with other coworkers and stuff. So I will tell you that, yeah, it was a little bit hard and I'd be eating at my desk, right? Or something like that. But then I did give myself permission to, like, on Fridays or whatever, to at least have some connectedness with others. And that's kind of where even today I struggle, because I'm one where if someone calls me and asks me, like yesterday, a buddy of mine texted me, hey, you want to go to lunch? And I almost always say, okay, And so, yeah, I didn't, all of a sudden you're $19 in, right? Or whatever. And so I struggle because it's like, that's my people time, but it's also, I can't do it every day.
Sure.
Because now I'll eventually get back up to blowing $500 a month, right? So
Yeah, and maybe at this point in your journey, that's okay. Like, you probably could afford to eat out more often. But when you're in this period where you do have a goal in mind, being a little bit more intentional with some of these expenses, and it's not even a binary decision. Like, it's not, I can eat out and I can't eat out. But maybe there's a situation where I don't eat out alone and just eliminate that and
there you go.
see how much. Or I don't pick up food whenever I'm driving back home because I know I'm not going to feel like cooking when I get back home. Like, there are other things I think you can put into play here that slowly you kind of shave away at an expense without saying going from 100 to 0 all of a sudden too. Because I'm with you. Like, you brought up another example with concerts. And it wasn't you saying, no, I can't go to concerts anymore. It was you being like, okay, I'll go to concerts and that's something I really love, but then I don't need to drop an additional $50 on a band t-shirt. That's the happy medium, or the tough questions you have to ask yourself. Where is the enjoyment and where is some of the mindless spending?
Right. And I don't know if I may have mentioned this before, but like one of the things I did, especially going to concerts, that's one of my favorite things. I put specific rules in place for my spending because my closet was full of black concert t-shirts. So what I did was I basically said, I won't even look at the shirts if they don't have another like alternative color than black. I don't need any more black concert shirts. And so it eliminated the decision. Like, I would walk into a show, look at the merch booth, and if it's all a bunch of black shirts, I don't even walk over there. There was no temptation at all. So if you can set up the rules for yourself, I'm telling you, it helps.
It does. A big one for me, one of the moves that I know shaved off tons of time on my timeline was having a roommate. I've had a roommate up until a couple of years ago. The first, 12-ish years of kind of post-college life for me. We had a roommate, and just like you, like, let's say that was probably $700, $800 a month that the roommate was paying that I would have had to pick up if we wanted the same place. And maybe we didn't get as big a place, but still, I'm sure I would have been forking up some more money. And yeah, looking back on how much money I saved just by enduring a roommate is incredible. And it kind of came with a lot of pros too. Like, it was nice to have somebody to live with, and I enjoyed spending time with other people. Now, at this point in my time or my life, I like it's just Gabby and I, my wife, and I have our own place together. But making that decision in my 20s and my early 30s versus having to make that decision now in my 30s into my 40s
Sure.
is such a better idea.
Yeah.
Did you personally experiment with any of like bigger lifestyle changes, things we've talked about like geo arbitrage or going car free? Were there any other big decisions like lifestyle wise that you made that you felt like really helped out?
Nothing like that, but I definitely went through a lot of side hustle stuff. Like I was doing everything I could to increase the income. So while I was working, I did everything from wrap my vehicle and drive and got paid for ads. I donated plasma, right, to earn extra money. I've done a lot of things. So that's definitely something that I did. And the beauty of like for instance, when I wrap my car, I used a service called Wrapify, and I set it up. They put basically a geolocation device like in the vehicle plus the app that's running, and I would run, and every day it would give me a total, and depending on where I was driving, and yeah, the money would just automatically go into my Freedom account. And it worked.
That's a cool little side hustle. How much did you make on that? Do you have any indication? Like what's an annual expectance?
I don't know. I mean, it varied, and it varied depending on where I would go. The interesting thing they would do sometimes, though, that I did take advantage of, is that sometimes they would say, you get a notification saying, it's a swarm. So they would get, let's say, so my vehicle was wrapped in Zoom. During a swarm, they would say, everybody that is advertising Zoom would show up in this one area at one time. Wow. So all the vehicles are like parading with the same ad, and you would get a boost. And so you could earn $70, $80 a day. But normally I'm making like 17 to 30 bucks a day.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so it worked out to real money, and it was just all just magically automated going into the Freedom account, and then that would go into my brokerage. So
that's cool.
That money turned into future money. And again, remember, those early dollars are worth so much more.
For sure.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess I have roots. I'll be here forever. So I never really wanted to move anywhere or anything like that. And yeah, so none of those type of big moves.
Makes sense. What about income? Can you give me a range on kind of how much money that you made? And I don't know if you were a high income earner or not, but I could easily debunk it on my side too. I think 10 years is totally reasonable. Over my 10 years, I've made everything from 40,000 up to 100,000. I haven't really made north of 100,000 at my W-2 job throughout my FI timeline. So I don't know if that's on par with you or you feel like it's realistic, but I know you were talking early on too about the average income and everything.
Yeah. So, and I'm happy to share. So when I first discovered this and started it, the tech company I was working at the time, I was making like 86 grand a year. Mm-hmm. And that went up incrementally, as I progressed in that job. Then I moved, again, a big move is obviously moving organizations. So when I moved to the company that I retired from, that was a huge increase. But then by the time I ended at age 50, my salary was, I want to say, it was around $130,000 a year. So I realized I am coming at a little bit of privilege, right? I was a high earner. Some people, depending on where you live, say 100 grand is not enough, which is crazy to me, but some people still think that. And then, but I want to also mention too, depending on where I worked and some of the benefits we had was definitely part of my plan because, I worked in big tech. I was offered restricted stock units. So they would grant me shares of stock. They would vest over time, basically a 4-year vesting schedule. And every time they would vest, now you had those number of shares. So when you added shares, right, the actual stock, that actually counts as income to the IRS. Mm-hmm. So there was a couple years where on paper, my income was like 200 grand.
Yeah.
But again, it's not like I'm cashing out and buying cars.
Yeah. It just got moved over to the asset bucket.
Yep, exactly. So that's definitely part of my plan. And sometimes you got to weigh that out too. As I was reaching, okay, I'm going to leave at 50. There were stock grants that I forfeited. Mm-hmm. I was leaving money on the table when I left. And it's kind of like, oh, do I stay long enough for those to vest and get another, whatever it is? I mean, as I went, I was at this last job for like 7 years. And the stock grants I get at every annual review were less and less and less and less. So it was like 20 grand, 10 grand. I mean, you get your 2% raise every year and then they'd give you a handful of stock.
Yeah.
It just wasn't worth it for me. Again, there was so much life I wanted to live. So,
And I think that's a serious conversation you have to have with yourself too, because if you're always waiting until that next payday, like I'll retire after this annual review or after I vest on that, like you're going to get caught because companies, especially big companies, are very good at dangling that carrot out just far enough again to keep people coming year after year after year.
Right.
So I do think at some point in time, and I like yours, you're like, you got to turn 50 and that's the year that got to cut things off. And I think that's a good strategy.
Right. I do want to mention too, though, is that a big thing that moved the needle for me was really making sure I didn't have any debt, because that allowed me to do, I guess, the biggest move to accelerate and make that 10-year timeline. Because I think, and again, maybe part of it was because I discovered Dave Ramsey early on, but it also was a little bit just like from my dad. My dad was very debt adverse. I remember in middle school, my dad would mention, "Oh, I made a double mortgage payment today," right? It was one of those things. Like he was very, he didn't want to have any debt. He was also one that said renting is just throwing away money. I don't necessarily believe that anymore. I think it all depends on lifestyle. And if you can still reach your goals and rent, that's totally fine. Like I don't necessarily believe that. But I was going to say I was pretty debt adverse. And so I'm going to say once I was able to pay, I didn't have any credit card debt. I paid off my truck, paid off my house. Once I didn't have any debt, the biggest move was I was able to invest like 60 to 70% of my income. And if you do that for 6-7 years, that's when it really started to pay off.
Yeah, I think anything north of 30% savings rate is you're cooking with gas at that point in time. Like things are going to move fast, especially if the market's working with you too, which fortunately over the last 10 years, we have had a market that's moving with us.
Exactly. So luckily, and again, I just basically took advantage of every pre-tax account I could. I was maxing out every single account. And then we also, where I worked, I could take advantage of mega backdoor Roth conversion rate. So I could do it in, what do they call it? I don't know. It was in the same custodian, right? I could do after tax contributions and then just convert it to Roth. And I did that with an extra $30,000 a year. So
nice. That's nice. Pursuing FI quickly comes with a lot of tension. Things that I'm thinking about is speed versus sustainability, or optimization versus enjoyment, or when it comes to investing, like certainty versus risk. Which of those did you personally struggle with the most?
I don't know if this answers the question, but the biggest thing is, saying no to people. Like I know, like for instance, my uncle would stop by and, he would say, "Hey, let's go to Trappers for dinner. They got all you can eat chicken wings or whatever." And I would say, "No, I really shouldn't. I'm gonna make food at home or whatever." And I remember one time he's like, "You are the cheapest rich person I know." And I'm like, "Well, I don't necessarily think I'm rich, but I'm making those choices because I knew I had a goal and I was going to reach 50 and have the opportunity to leave work." Some of those occasions where, you had to say no to things, but I don't think I was really depriving myself. I mean, it's not like I really missed out on such major milestone in life just by not going to have chicken wings.
Yeah. Did you have any untouchables in terms of expenses, things that, you would allow yourself guilt-free to spend money on?
Oh, absolutely. Apple Music.
Yep.
And then, like, I remember I stopped, like, all streaming services for a while, right? When I was tracking, that area of tracking, I stopped. I mean, it was almost scorched earth, but I had Apple Music was, like, a non-negotiable because it was such an important thing. And that's a lot of my music discovery, too, and that type of thing. And also, there were, like, a couple bands that the concerts were non-negotiable. Like if Iron Maiden came through town, I would absolutely go to that show, right? One of my favorite bands. So that is some of the things that I couldn't do. And I would also, it's funny, there are things like birthday presents for my kids or something like that. Like it's funny because like some of those things, kind of don't even really, I never even think about like how much they cost. I just think about, well, are they really going to like that thing?
Yeah.
You know? And I much rather, and I think a lot of people are that way. It's easier to spend money on somebody else than themselves. I don't know. That's just the way I think about it.
Yeah. I have a similar feeling about my 10-year timeline too. Like I don't feel like I really deprived myself of much. There were some moments looking back that I said no, probably because I didn't want to spend the money and I wish I would have said yes. But I think that's only a couple of moments. And there are some things that I buy now that I would never want to go back to not buying.
Ooh, like what? Like what?
Healthy food, honestly. Like
Uh-huh.
that's one of the big things for me. If like there's a choice and it's $1 more versus $1 less, like I'll take the healthier option if it's relatively the same. But I have a lot of untouchables too. Like we both share a love for concerts and music festivals. Like I go to 3 to 4 music festivals a year, and those are not cheap typically.
Yeah.
Like concert or music festival tickets are like $300 to $600 now, and usually have airfare and travel and food and all the things there too.
Yep.
But that's one of my non-negotiables. I travel, usually do an international trip and 3 to 5 kind of domestic trips throughout the year too, which is great. I've moved 2 times in my last 10 years. I took a mini retirement for 7 months. Like kind of looking back at my 10-year timeline, I'm like, you know what? Like, yeah, I was like pretty frugal and I didn't really overspend on things that it didn't bring me a lot of joy. But at the same time, I didn't really feel like I was depriving myself either.
What's the difference between frugal and being cheap? I want to know your definition.
I really think it comes down to intentionality, in all honesty. You can wear the frugal badge with pride. And, if there is something that you are not interested in, then and you don't buy it, I'm all for it. There's some gray area on cheapness. Like I'm not a fan of going out to eat and then under tipping the server. Like that, like I think there's some areas where it gets into cheap. And I think if you kind of know what you're signing up for and you just can't afford it or you don't think it's really worth the value that it plays, then just don't participate it in the first place.
Right, right.
What about you? Do you have similar thoughts?
Again, I learned a lot of my frugality from my dad. Raised by a single dad, we didn't have a lot of things like, I think I mentioned this in another show, we didn't have like end tables. At the end table next to the sofa would be a cardboard box with a towel over it.
Yeah.
And that's what the lamp was on. That's fine. But yet, I still had like a Nintendo. So it was very much, I started to learn, okay, spend on what you value. But then there was also a thing where my dad went too far, where cheap did go too far. Like he would own like one pair of pants until it wore out, then go buy another pair of pants. Like literally, that was I remember one time my dad, like his belt broke. This is a true story. His leather belt broke. And Justin, he sewed the belts together with like fishing line and continued to wear the belt for another like 4 years. Like, I mean, that's the type of cheapness. Like, what's it cost? Go to Walmart and spend $7 on a belt?
Yeah.
But I don't know if that was being cheap or he just, I don't know, maybe he just loved fixing things.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know.
Some people are very resourceful, and some people that just like that doesn't matter to them. Like if they put together a fishing line for their belt and it works for them, it works for them. I try not to judge anyone on their own personal things, but it's hard when it's your parents, because I'm also a recovering frugalite from parents too. And there are certain things like my parents, they have plenty of money right now and we'll like pick a spot to eat and they'll look at the menu and they're like, oh, this is too expensive. I'm like, Dad, like you're not, what are you going to do with all this money? Like, I don't want that money. Like, I'd rather make that dividend memory with you right now doing this really cool experience. And I still think they're on their own journey with that. And looking back, I realized how much I've grown from that experience and from that psychology too. And how much I honestly still have to grow. Like now moving into my post financial independence life, there are still moments where I catch myself kind of being cheap, where I'm like, you know what, Justin, like that's like 4 hours of headache versus you just paying a little bit extra money. I'm like, okay, let's just do this.
I will tell you that just recently though, I bought a new patio set for my deck. Like I literally had it for a few days and the wind, like one of the like bars broke through the umbrella where the seam was. I used fishing line to fix it. So
hat tip to Dad. Let's go.
Yeah, there you go. And it's now good as new.
Well, Chris, kind of as we're wrapping up this conversation here, how do you avoid burnout in all of this? Like 10 years, although short in hindsight and maybe in like your investing journey is actually a really long time as well. So I'm kind of curious how you avoided burnout throughout your journey and if there were signs that showed up when you were pushing too hard and then what you did to overcome some of that.
Yeah, there are going to be times when you're tired and you're still going to order a pizza. Like, there are times when you are going to start to feel burnout. And I think, in all honesty, the thing that helped most was surrounding yourself with those like-minded people. Because that is something that you could have those discussions with people that have either been there before you, that could be your cheerleader, right? That could lift you up when you're feeling beat down. And so finding community, when I first went to my very first Camp FI, I had no idea who anybody was. And then after that, I went to an economy conference and I started to just meet these people and have regular communications with these people. And then meeting people in person now. I mean, we do monthly meetups here. Well, I do a couple different ones. So that happens a couple times a month. Over the past 10 years, those regular conversations definitely helped. Because when you're feeling burned out and you're listening to others, they can either, lift you up, they can talk about the challenges, but help you understand it's not forever, that type of thing. That's definitely a big one that helped me from getting burned out for sure.
Yeah, and add my own 2 cents in here. Just remind yourself that although it's 10 years and you have a big goal, that goal can be chunked down. You can pause and stop that goal at some point in time. I mentioned I took a mini retirement for 7 months and I actually lost money during that time period. And that was totally okay because I came back really refreshed and excited to get back after the goal. And it didn't put a huge dent in my timeline. And then I also, something I've really noticed just over the last couple of years is to start enjoying some of the freedom that you're incrementally gaining along the way as well. For me, it would have been very easy for me to continue working full time, put my head down and wait until I get to financial independence or my FIRE number to go ahead and quit my corporate job. But instead, I realized I was about 70% of the way there, 80% of the way there. I had this kind of little worker on my shoulder that was helping me pay my expenses every single day. And I realized I could rely a little bit less on my W-2 job. So I went part-time. And I thought I needed to quit, but just going part-time, going from 40 hours a week to 25 hours a week was a huge lift. And then I was able to work for another year and a half after I made that transition. And it seems so obvious looking back on it, but then at the moment I was like, wow, I thought I needed to quit and blow up my whole life and then figure out how I was going to pay for my bills. I just needed to do what I was doing a little bit less. I just needed to work a little bit less. And that was super freeing.
What was the catalyst to you taking that 7 months off? Was it losing a job? Was it shifting career?
I was in a job transition. So I was working,
Okay.
I worked for a company out of college for 7 years. I love the company, but I never intentionally chose it. And the industry was fine, but I wasn't jumping up and down to be in the industry. I didn't realize that at the time, but I made another quick jump to a competitor. That didn't work out, and I pretty much immediately quit. Within 5 months, I quit that job, and I was kind of left. I had just gone through this experiment 6 months ago when I was changing jobs, being oh, what do I want to do? And this is what I want to do. And then I made the big LinkedIn announcement, and I'm yes, this is my new job, and I'm really excited for it. Reach out if you need help, blah, blah, blah. And then here I was 5 months later, kind of even more lost and confused.
Oh, wow.
So what that really taught me and what I really wanted to take away from that moment was I need some white space to think about what I wanted. And right when that came about, I had this really good conversation with a career coach. He knew a little bit of my financial backstory, knew I set myself up pretty well. And he's like, Justin, why don't you just take a little bit of time off? And as a kid that grew up with two hardworking parents that had always worked, I'd been working since I was 14, taking time off before I formally retired, let alone taking time off in my 20s, was never something that crossed my mind.
Was it scary for you?
It was super scary, dude.
Yeah,
it was
that'd
super
be terrifying.
scary. But yeah, I went ahead and pulled the trigger on it. And I'm so glad I did, because what happened, not only did I spend the first half of that sabbatical not thinking about work, but I wanted to invest in a hobby that I always said I wanted to do but never had time because of work. And that hobby was podcasting. And it was so cool. I started this podcast a week after I left that job and started a sabbatical. And I thought it was just going to be a little sabbatical project. I liked audio format. I really loved podcasting. And that turned into me continuing to be a podcaster even after I joined the workforce. And then ultimately, my brother and I started a podcast production company, and we've been doing that for 4 years. And talk about a side hustle that really lifted my FI journey. That's been a huge help for me. And not only it's allowed me to retire into something I'm really excited about too. So like
That's awesome.
I was done with corporate a year ago because I was really excited to invest my working hours into the company that I own, not necessarily into a W-2 job for me.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What a great story.
Thanks, man. Well, Chris, talk about a great story. You got a great story, man. I can't believe you did it in 10 years. You're super impressive. I'm so glad that we know each other. If you want to check out Chris, he's got an awesome podcast, Heavy Metal Money Podcast. You can find it on all the podcast players that are out there. Chris, man, this has been a blast. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.